Edward Burne-Jones. He was known as Ted Jones growing up. He was born in Birmingham in 1833, one decade, and his mother died 6 days after he was born. So basically he was brought up by his father and quite an overbearing house mistress. He, on the socio-economic scale, he would have been sort of lower middle class, so they were quite poor growing up, and his dad really wanted to make sure he had a good education. So he went to the local grammar school, and it was free. It was a charitable institution when he was 11 at King Edward VI in Birmingham. And then he really sort of came to his own in terms of his art. He started drawing lots of caricatures for his friends. He was quite a cheeky boy, always makes sort of funny jokes with his caricatures. He started doing sort of evening classes in drawing. But that wasn't what he intended to do. He never intended to be an artist. What he actually intended to do was become a clergyman. When he went to Oxford University when he was 19, he was studying theology, and he managed to get to Exeter College, and there he met William Morris. I'm sure most of you have heard of William Morris or Morris & Co. It's a very popular, still today, he designs very much about arts and crafts, aestheticism, and his meeting William Morris was kind of a change in his life. It galvanised basically what we know about Edward Burne-Jones today. They became very good friends. He was also studying to become a priest, minister. They both had sort of religious ideals. They both came from different backgrounds. William Morris was more wealthy. So on their first trip to France when they were at university, William Morris paid for quite a lot of the bills, and it was at this first trip to France that Edward Burne-Jones discovered these Gothic cathedrals with their spires, and he took his sketchbook with him, and he was sketching all these cathedrals in Beauvais and Chartres. At this trip to France with William Morris, they both decided that they were going to give up this idea to become ministers or clergymen, and they were going to pursue a life in art. So Burne-Jones was quite embarrassed about this. He didn't want to tell his dad who had funded his university studies. And he kind of quietly left Oxford University, didn't tell his father, and went to London where his aunt lived. Eventually, he kind of, part of his love was Pre-Raphaelitism. And if you see his earlier work, you can see there's a lot of influence from Dante Gabriel Rossetti. Even looking at it, you can see the facial features look very much like Rossetti's. So he loved Rossetti, and he was also a big fan of John Ruskin. And what he did when he went to London is he basically stalked Rossetti until he met him and became friends with him. I think Rossetti sort of took him under his wing and helped him develop his artistic skills, because he wasn't properly trained, he wasn't formally trained as an artist. He met John Ruskin as well, who also became like a mentor to him. So he had these two very sort of important, influential people helping him developing his artistic lifestyle. And after France, he went on his first trip to Italy, and he fell in love with all the Italian artists. And I think it was his third trip to Italy. He went to the Sistine Chapel, went to Rome, and he was like lying on the floor of the Sistine Chapel looking up and sketching the ceiling, like just everywhere he went, just sketching books upon books upon books. And they didn't have cameras in those days, so he would take these sketches and do these sort of copies of all these famous Michelangelo and all his sort of Botticelli, all these sort of artists that he admired, and he would do these copies and take them back and show them to people he knew in London. It was really after this trip to Italy that he started to take it quite seriously, and he started to get commissions through Rossetti for his first stained glass commission was in 1857, and then he also got commissions, for decorative arts, jewellery, woodcuts. On Burne-Jones' return from his second trip to Italy with Georgiana, he found that the company was just booming, and he was basically churning out these cartoons, like one a week. There are hundreds and hundreds of these stained glass windows. So basically, this onto the stained glass, it's one of the many things that Burne-Jones did. So how the stained glass production works, so Edward Burne-Jones would draw a smaller version, what's called a cartoon, these are cartoons, and then they'd be scaled up, and then people in the company would transfer that onto the glass. And William Morris was very much involved with the colouring and the intricate sort of how the glass was put out and the style of it. So Burne-Jones did these, the cartoons, and then William Morris did the colouring of the glass. This is the full window. So this is at St Giles Cathedral. And so this is called the Joshua window in St Giles Cathedral. So if you've been, you can see this is the only William Morris window at St Giles. Most of them were done by a company called Ballantyne and Son. I'm going to show you some bit more detail. Let's start with that one behind you. So this is to do with the crossing of the River Jordan. So it's about when the Israelites were wanting to get to their promised land and heading toward Jericho, and then they reached the River Jordan. And so you've got the priests holding the Ark of the Covenant there. And even if you're not religious, I think you know what the Ark of the Covenant is from Raise of the Lost Ark. And so it's like this gilded box that held the stones which had the Ten Commandments written on them. So this is, they reach the River Jordan, and God says the priests have just got to start walking, and then the water will pile up upon itself and you'll be able to walk through. And that's what happened. It's very similar, it's kind of parallels with the Red Sea story of Moses. And then this is sort of like part of the third, it's like triptych, the top three images. So once they've crossed the River Jordan, God has said to Joshua, get one person from each of your 12 tribes to take a stone from the riverbed, and when you reach your camp for the night, when you cross the river, everyone will take a stone from each tribe and then put it in a pile, and that will be a memorial to how you've reached your promised land. And if you have a look at this drawing, you'll see they've got like these horns. They're made out of ram's horns. And the story was that once they reached Jericho, 7 priests were to circle Jericho 7 times, blowing their horns, and then the walls of Jericho would fall down, and that's how they would achieve, victory and win the promised land. So that's why we've got the horns in here in this picture here. There are 3 females from the biblical stories, and they're not particularly to do with the crossing. They're not to do with the River Jordan crossing. So we've got Jephthah's daughter, which I said is in Auckland, and then we've got Miriam, which is this one. So this is kind of it's parallels. This is related to the Red Sea parting, and she was Moses' older sister. And so in the story of the Red Sea crossing, when Moses parted the Red Sea, when they came through the other side, the water then drowned the Pharaoh's men. And so they had a big celebration, and it was the Song of the Sea. And she led this kind of song in celebration of this victory that they had crossing through the river, the Red Sea. And this is her playing one of her instruments. There's other stained glass that Burne-Jones did. There's one that he did her holding cymbals. So it's basically meant to be her playing her music and celebrating, and her leading the local community to say, we've achieved this. And she sort of was a prophetess, the first prophetess in the Old Testament. So this is what you see from Burne-Jones's side of the work. But once we get to the stained glass, and the colour, and I'll have to show you. So the blue, look how, and the colour, if you know William Morris and Morris & Co. designs, you've got these kind of swirls there, and you've got the design in the banner. All of this comes from the William Morris side of the design. I just think it's marvellous just how much detail has gone into these stained glasses. And the blue that comes out, which you can't appreciate just looking at these charcoal drawings. If you go to these cathedrals and churches and see stained glass in person, you'll see the intricate details, see the floral details. And so then we've got the story of Ruth, who, her story was basically her mother-in-law, her husband died, and then her 2 sons died, and so she left with her 2 daughters-in-law, and she said to them basically, I'm going to go back to Bethlehem, you go back to your families. And so Ruth said, no, I won't leave you. And she follows, even though she's from Moab, which is ancient Palestine, she goes to Bethlehem with her mother-in-law, and there she meets Boaz. And she's basically really poor. She doesn't have anyone to look after her because she's lost her husband, lost her, extended family. She's in a place that isn't her homeland, and she's surviving on. So when the farmers took the wheat or the grain, they left some at the side for the poorer people to sort of have. And so she would collect that at the end of the day. And the person who owned the land, Boaz, he noticed her, and they eventually ended up getting married, and she ended up being grandmother to King David, I think. So this is the story of her collecting the grains. And again, if you look at the stained glass detail, there's so much colour and extra detail that you don't see on these stained glass, on these cartoons.
How did Liverpool acquire?
And these came from, so Lord Leverhulme, he had a huge collection of Victorian art, so he donated these and also the one to Auckland. He just collected loads of art. He loved Victorian and Pre-Raphaelite art.
Thank you.